let's talk about the latest episode of Miss Marvel. That is episode number 5. So, episode number 5, I think, was somewhat intriguing, right? It was a bit of a departure from what we had seen in our main storyline, because we end up going and traveling back in time and seeing a whole different set of events until finally coming back and meeting Kamala later on. I think that they did a good job with this episode, but I do question whether or not this episode shows an underlying issue that I might be feeling with the MCU shows, and that is that some of them feel as though they're just being lengthened at times for the sake of it, and I feel like they could have done something slightly differently with the whole flashback element. I'm not sure how necessary it actually was, and also I feel as though the ending of this episode also makes it seem like we could have just had a mid-season break. We could have done something else, and I feel like the 6-episode standard here might be hurting the MCU stories so far. That being said, I am still loving the show, and I do think that overall, this episode was very interesting. I just don't know if it was completely necessary. Let me know if you agree on that before we get into the more specifics of this video. So let's first talk specifically about the flashbacks in this episode. We get to see the specifics of the whole Aisha storyline, how we meet Aisha's husband, and how Nani is born, as well as how partition takes place. All of that stuff is portrayed in this story, and we get to see some elements of history. Obviously, we get to see Gandhiji for a second in this video, or in this episode, and I think that was pretty interesting to see, because obviously this is happening during the partition of India and stuff like that, so it makes sense that they brought about some of the elements of the actual history of this time period. For me, I really enjoyed it overall. I just don't know how necessary it was. I feel as though we could have just picked up with what was going on with Nani being separated from her father, and I just don't know. I feel as though part of this story was a bonus, right? It's a bonus to what we already get to see, and at the very least, I feel like we could have gotten to hear part of this story through Nani's eyes, or through her telling the story to Kamala. I don't think we necessarily needed time travel at all. It's just weird to me. I feel as though the idea that the bracelet, or maybe even Miss Marvel, is going to have some type of time travel-esque oriented abilities and that stuff, it just feels really weird to me, considering how powerful the time stone is supposed to be, and now we're just time traveling automatically here. It's just weird. I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I mean, I really enjoyed the story, right? I enjoyed seeing Aisha meet her husband. I enjoyed Nani becoming a child and everything like that, seeing all that stuff happen, seeing the, not racism, but the prejudice, right, that is taking place between the Hindus and Muslims. So having them being a Muslim family being treated differently, not able to buy food, not able to sell anything because of their religious beliefs. I mean, this is a real thing that happened in history, and something that you don't learn about in American history, any of this. You just hear that the British broke apart India as they left, if anything else, right? I don't even know if we really even hear about that in the US school system. I don't remember if I learned about this just from home, or if I learned about this in school. I feel like it's very unlikely that I learned much beyond the fact that the British occupied India, and beyond that, I don't really think we learned anything really about this. So I thought historically, seeing that in an American piece of media was pretty interesting, and I think that it was important, and I just overall think that it was okay. I am just curious to know what other people thought about the necessity of pretty much this entire episode, right? Because we end up fairly close to where we were previously, and the overarching question mark of what the clandestines are going to do is just thrown out the window at the end of this episode, because everything just gets resolved. So again, I don't know if this is a commentary on some of the issues with the Disney Plus shows, or if it's just me overthinking it. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I did want to talk about the fact that Najima actually kills Aisha. I did not expect this at all. I guess it just makes her a lot more irredeemable at the end of that flashback, which confused me a bit more, considering right after that, she chooses not to go through with her plan that she was willing to kill a bunch of people for. I mean, it made it seem very weird, and I think that this also relates to some of the pacing issues with this show. Honestly, it's just a little weird that Najima is willing to kill someone that she's known for so long and who apparently they've been friends at least for a while, right? And yet she is also able to like betray her son, right? And then at the end she just saves him. I feel as though they could have done this in a much longer arc, and I just feel as though it's a bit of a pacing issue for this specific episode. I think they really wanted to have this flashback element, but as a result, they didn't have as much time to resolve the whole clandestines trying to return home idea. Also, I gotta say, like, it's kind of insane that the clandestines just die after this, right? They're all just gone. And again, I just feel as though they could have done a bit more of an interesting thing here, because according to us, like, there was nothing to indicate why the portal would just kill them, right? There was a whole other episode explaining what would happen when the portal was opened, and that just doesn't happen here. And then why does Najima still think that she can go through and then just chooses to close the portal? It just felt a little weird to me. That being said, I mean, that's all I'm going to say on that front. Let's talk about the fact that Kamala is the one to save Nani. I don't know how I feel about this either, right? Again, the story itself, I think it's fine. I like the story and I really, really enjoy the show. I just don't really see the point in bringing in time travel in this particular show. I just think that they decided to throw it in there. I don't know what the point of it is, right? Like, they could have just said that this was Nani's innate abilities to be able to follow the stars back to her family, and it just has to do with the fact that her abilities weren't fully manifested, but somehow, like, it manifested in that moment, and she was able to make her way back to her father. This whole element of Kamala being the one to bring Nani back home, it's like, it's unnecessary. It's not to say that it's a bad plot point, it's just unnecessary. I will say I like that Kamala's mom actually finds out in this episode, them just having a conversation about it and not really judging Kamala in that moment, her actually finding out about her heritage. I think that it makes sense, and I think that she really needed someone in her family to find out what was actually going on apart from Nani, and so I really, really liked that part of it. Also, it allows us to have a reconciliation between Nani and her daughter, and I think that that's very important for this show, and I really, really liked that element of the actual story. Overall, I do think that this element is one of the more character-driven parts of the episode, and I think it works very, very well. I think the show overall does a wonderful job with the characters and what they're actually going through, and getting us to empathize and really care about what's going on with them. I think that this element is just another piece of that, where we get to see reconciliation between mother and daughter in this story, and that's really what is the heart of this show. It is the family element, the family dynamic. Let's actually talk about the ending of this episode, and that is the fact that Kamran escapes. He now has abilities that are probably pretty akin to Miss Marvel. The question mark is whether or not he is now more capable, more powerful, because he's able to use his abilities without using the bangle, so that is a big question mark, and we're gonna have to wait and see what happens there moving forward. I'm curious to know what happens next, especially now that Kamala's gonna have to come home, find out that Bruno's shop, the place that he lives, where he works, has been destroyed. Like, what's gonna happen next? And I feel like Damage Control is obviously gonna be the villain for the next episode. I'm just curious to know specifically what they're going to do, because of the sheer incompetence that seems to follow Damage Control wherever they go. They're not even able to have drones that are properly able to survey without being easily caught. So again, I just want to see what's going to happen moving forward, and I'm excited to see what happens in this finale. I really hope they stick the landing, so I'm excited for that. Overall, I do know that I kind of bagged on this episode a little bit more than usual. I just feel as though there are some issues that Marvel has in terms of their pacing with some of their shows, and I feel like that it is a little bit shown here. I feel like we could have done this in another episode or two, have this be lengthened out a bit more if they really wanted a full episode of Flashback. That could have done it. But that being said, I do think that overall this show is fantastic. I really love it. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy the video? Also, what are your thoughts on the episode overall? If you liked the video, please like the video and subscribe for more videos from me on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day.